Marketing secret formula. The main idea. The story of Coca-Cola is a special one. The drink was first created in 1886 by the association between John Pemberton and Yankee Frank Robinson. This drink is now dominating the beverage market in the world. Coca-Cola itself, as emphasized by Frederick Allen, author of The Secret Recipe, is not just a beverage. Nor is it just a compilation of parts of its own history, as it has been right from the start. The story of Coke is always better than it really is. That is the secret to the success of this brand. About the author. Frederick Allen is a former opinion editor and columnist for the Atlanta Constitution, and a commentator for CNN. His Coca-Cola Company biography, Top Secret Recipe, has been translated into 7 languages. Atlanta Rising, his analysis of the influencing factors that have shaped modern Atlanta, is taught at a number of universities. His book on the justice team in Montana, A Decent, Orderly, Lynching, has just been published by the Journal of the University of Oklahoma. He and his wife, Linda, have lived in Atlanta and Bozeman, Montana. Main content: the early days. Coca-Cola was founded by a combination of famous personalities: war hero John Stith Pemberton and Union Army veteran, former Union soldier Frank Mason Robinson in Atlanta, Georgia, at the end of the day. 1886. Pemberton is best known as the father of Coca-Cola, but it was the little-known character Robinson who came up with the idea of Coca-Cola. The story begins in Atlanta. In the American South in the time of famine and hardship, there was a market for all kinds of goods, and Pemberton wanted to enter this market. Despite the lack of capital, he decided to start a business in Atlanta. Pemberton started in the 1870s by establishing dealer pharmacies and establishing partnerships with investors who financed the drugs he created to distribute the products. He succeeded in making and selling his own medicines. Pemberton's Coca-Cola French was his most successful product at the time. Not surprising, since its ingredients contained cocaine, which at the time was not yet regulated as illegal. To broaden the appeal of his product, he added another popular drug, an extract from the African cola nut. The product was so successful that Pemberton began looking for new partners to help him meet the needs of the market. The appearance of Robinson. Robinson arrived in Atlanta in December 1885 hoping to start an advertising business. He met Pemberton and quickly came to an agreement with Pemberton. Pemberton will continue to be responsible for formulating and manufacturing the products while Robinson will manage the company's marketing. From there, the Pemberton Chemical Company was born in January 1886. Robinson didn't just do the commercials. He also convinced Pemberton to test a new product. Pemberton and Robinson set out to create a refreshing drink based on cola nut extract. They wanted a drink that could theoretically compete with coffee and tea, since the main ingredient of cola nuts is caffeine. Unfortunately, cola nut extract doesn't taste good. Not long after, it was removed from the market. Pemberton blends real caffeine with sugar, caramel, coca leaf extract, lemon juice, citric acid and phosphoric acid. He then mixed the latter with carbon water. The first version of Coca-Cola was created from that. Robinson to the rescue. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before Pemberton fell ill and business began to suffer. Robinson still believed so strongly in the newly created product, he decided that the drink just needed better marketing. He later officially named the product after the coca leaves and cola seeds from which it was made. Robinson changed the K in cola to C for consistency, added a dash and created the now famous Coca-Cola brand. Business boomed from there. However, Pemberton trademarked Coca-Cola soft drinks and extracts under his name without Robinson. Robinson went mad and urgently sought help from a few individuals. Robinson's plea reached the ears of Asa Candler, an outstanding entrepreneur. Robinson talked about Coca-Cola to Candler time and time again, but Candler wasn't very excited until he tasted the product himself. Candler became a believer in the drink after it eased his indigestion. He took control of Coca-Cola from Pemberton, hired him back, and put Robinson back in charge. Robinson and Candler set out to expand the business boundaries. After Pemberton died of illness, Robinson and Candler decided to tweak the recipe. Glycerin was added to the mixture to make it more liquid. In addition, the coca and cola levels have been reduced to significantly reduce costs and to reduce growing public concern about cocaine. In addition, they began to introduce the concept of free tasting as a way to advertise the product. The massive marketing campaign was so successful that soda drinkers across the South began asking for Coke. After an initial successful assessment, Candler began considering expanding his operations northward. However, Coca-Cola's rapid success had a dark side. People began to say that cocaine was still present in the drink, and that was the main reason for Coca-Cola's success. Despite mounting criticism, Robinson and Candler refuse to give up coca leaves altogether. They want to preserve their brand and protect their rights to the brand name. Eventually, Robinson and Candler developed a complete process that could completely remove traces of cocaine from Coca-Cola. However, Candler did not announce this publicly, to preserve the Coca-Cola legacy. Bottle of Coca-Cola. The first Coca-Cola bottle appeared in 1891. Candler was initially uncertain about the bottling of the drink. But the two entrepreneurs who brought the idea to him proved so brilliant that Candler gave them full control of the process. However, contracts with loosely regulated terms became a problem for the company in the decades that followed. Some bottlers have even transferred the bottling process to other companies. As a result, Coke bottles vary considerably in size, shape, and quality. It wasn't until 1916 that the standard Coke bottle, shaped like a cocoa bean pod, was introduced. Candler broke the law. Candler vehemently protested when the government, which was seeking to finance the American-Spanish War of 1898, taxed the company. He reluctantly paid what he was asked to do, and then sued to get every penny back with interest. The government responded by stating that Coca-Cola is a drug and cannot escape paying taxes, and moreover contains cocaine. However, official tests show only very small amounts of cocaine. Not long after, a new development made things worse. Prohibition laws soon turned many poor blacks in the South to cocaine addiction. Sensational journalists caught their eye, and crazy stories began to emerge, many of them vehemently anti-Coca-Cola. To make matters worse, a racial backlash also erupted against the cola ingredient. The result were fierce calls to stop selling Coca-Cola. Candler had to ask cocaine manufacturers for advice on how to make Coca-Cola without cocaine. However, a large number of activists boycotted Coca-Cola. From a madly boycotting Coke chemist named Dr. Harvey Wiley, many community activists and propagandists began to surround the company. In that situation, the company continued in business and continued to do well. However, there was a family tragedy that took place. Candler's son and heir, Howard, seems unfit for social issues. Meanwhile, his grandson, Sam Dobbs, has proven smarter and more independent than any of his children. Dobbs has excelled in proving his abilities time and time again, especially when it comes to advertising for the company. It was Dobbs who ran ads with pictures of beautiful women drinking Coke. Although these ads were said to be ahead of their time, too radical, it worked wonders for the business. However, because of Candler's biased treatment of his son, Dobbs did not stand a chance to rise to the top. Worse still, the lawsuit by the opposing chemist Wiley has quietly come to the attention of the Supreme Court in the U.S. The Supreme Court has ruled that the government is appointed to carry out the retrial. Coca-Cola in times of war. However, all legal problems were put aside during World War I. When war broke out, the company's main concern was its survival. In fact, the company went downhill due to a lack of sugar and was subsequently subject to a special tax on sales of soft drinks. Still, demand for Coca-Cola continued unabated and the company struggled to keep control. A first test of a caramel-free soft drink delighted customers. The company's top executives now recognize the importance of underground lobbying and associating products with iconic national tastes, all to the company's benefit. Next time. After the war, the outlook was bright again for the company. No one knew that things were about to take a turn for the worse. The company changed owners. From the outside, the company appears to be doing just fine as usual. However, inside it, things start to get messy. The Candlers find it increasingly difficult to manage their affairs. On Christmas Day 1917, Asa Candler divided his shares among his wife and children, keeping only 7%. Once again Sam Dobbs gets only the scum. This time, Dobbs decided to hit back. Dobbs and Woodruff persuaded Candler's children to give Woodruff control of the company. Woodruff rehired them and brought in new investors in a series of perfectly planned deals that installed Howard Candler as Coca-Cola's new chairman of the board. However, it was only a formal board. Woodruff and Sam Dobbs were the ones who really held the power. The problem was that the Coca-Cola company was on the verge of bankruptcy at the time. Their operations are based entirely on sugar and the company suffers every time the world price of sugar changes. Sugar prices rose continuously and the company was forced to sacrifice revenue to cope. Woodruff's efforts to get bottlers to accept lower prices backfired, as he soon faced outcry and was embroiled in another lawsuit. To make matters worse, the company insisted on keeping a stockpile of sugar for 60 days while sugar prices fell overnight. A major rescue came when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Coca-Cola in a long-delayed lawsuit. When the bottlers' lawsuit was finally settled, things turned for the better for the company. Devolution. After those setbacks, everyone was determined to get back to work. Darcy began to brainstorm ideas for even more creative advertisements, lighting up billboards and magazines. Business also boomed under Woodruff's direction. Within a few years, however, his son Robert Bob Woodruff was poised to succeed him. Bob's and Ernest Woodruff often clashed. Lord Woodruff the Younger had a youthful spirit that put him in constant conflict with his domineering father, who was a generous spender. He was kicked out of college and went to work at a foundry to the dismay of his family. However, he married Nell Hodgson, a girl with good conditions. By moving from the foundry to the car industry, Robert had climbed up the corporate ladder and left a good reputation for himself. It was then that his father began to take steps to bring him back to Atlanta. Ernest Woodruff needs a replacement for Howard Candler. To prove to his father that he can do it, Bob accepts the position. Bob Woodruff took the reins. Bob Woodruff became the company's best leader. He was responsible for Coca-Cola's affairs for the next 60 years, transforming the company's brand into the most recognizable symbol in the world, and is referred to as one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. His generation. Here are a few changes that Bob Woodruff has made. You have decided to adopt a policy that there will never be a change in the formula of Coca-Cola again. He drew great attention by giving Coca-Cola a mysterious aura like what Asa Candler wanted. He achieved this by directing an enormous amount of public attention to Coke's formula. He started focusing on advertising as a key to success in the market. He decided he couldn't work with Bill Darcy, and hired Archie Lee, a younger man, to do the job. Lee conceived of one of the most successful brand image campaigns, injecting Coca-Cola with an appeal far beyond its product function. He began to press the company to seek expansion into foreign markets. In this regard, he established a foreign expansion board in 1926. Most of the markets the company first tested were unfriendly for various reasons, but the drink managed to find its way. Foothold in Cuba and Germany. France was a complete failure because of the xenophobic attitude of the French, but they later accepted it. Pepsi. Coca-Cola's story wouldn't be complete without talking about its most formidable competitor, Pepsi. Pepsi was the name of a drink that had been used by a company that had gone bankrupt in 1923. And it wasn't long before it caught the attention of a confectioner, Carey's Guth, who was promoting a confectionery at the time. A chocolate drink called Mavis but wanted to enter the cola market. The name Pepsi was taken from the word pepsin, a digestive enzyme found in the original recipe. Guth is known as a mysterious businessman and a difficult customer. His uncompromising tactics show that's exactly what this brand needs to penetrate the market. During the Great Recession, Pepsi was sold in bottles twice the size of Coke, for the same price. This caused fury in Atlanta, but that was nothing compared to what would happen next. Pepsi-Cola started its business in Canada, and this expansion also marked the defection of D.S. Hawkes, one of the Coca-Cola Company's top executives in Europe, to Pepsi-Cola. But the worst is yet to come. After losing a lawsuit by Loft Incorporated, Guth was replaced by Walter Mack, a cunning and complicated businessman who held a majority stake in Loft Incorporated. Mack is a much more determined businessman than Guth. He poured money into Pepsi's promotional budgets and used them in funds ranging from college scholarships to radio shows. In just 7 years, Pepsi held a tenth of the soft drink market share in the U.S. World War II. During World War II, the Coca-Cola Company faced even more challenges. The company's only successful export market was Nazi Germany, and it goes without saying that doing business in this market is extremely dangerous. Max Keith, who ran the business here, introduced a new product called Fanta to bypass import restrictions. Harsh regulations once again affected business, and raw sugar was once again affected. The problem gets worse as demand increases dramatically. An out-of-the-ordinary problem resurfaced. The company was required to prove that its product was good for children and that doctors would support it. Since any revenue from sales to the military would be exempt from the raw sugar regulations, the solution became obvious. To recover the lost revenue due to the above problems, the company would have to prove that Coca-Cola was vitally important in the war. At this time, the company began to sell the drink to every military barracks, especially most of the large training camps that had just begun to bloom. In addition, the company also supplies Coke to soldiers in the field. After the war ended, the company discovered that Max Keith, who had successfully run his business in Nazi Germany, had completely sided with his one-time American bosses. He increased Coca-Cola's total number of overseas operations to 63. Public opinion and the government were completely on Coke's side, and the outcome sent Pepsi reeling. Coca-Cola became an icon of American style. Modern era. The Coca-Cola Company got through the difficult years of World War II without suffering too much damage. With Bob Woodruff at the helm, the company was strong enough to weather any storm. Bob Woodruff has always been a moderate on race. In the days after the war, he instilled this spirit in his company. This spirit is a prerequisite for doing business in places like Asia, Africa, and South Africa. Coca-Cola's success to this point is due to the company's ability to position its product as an American icon. If the company wants to expand, it needs to undergo a major change. The years after the war saw the birth of new products besides Coca-Cola. During the 1960s, Fanta was conceived and sold by Max Keith during World War II. The base flavor soon increased through a line of popular flavors. Not long after that, Sprite was born. Then the company started selling Coke in cans instead of the iconic bottles. In 1962, a public opinion survey revealed that 28% of Americans were worried about their weight. The company has been experimenting with fat-free drinks, and Tab is one of those to hit the market. The acquisition of Minute Maid Group has added orange juice to the company's product portfolio. Bob Woodruff versus Austin. Old Woodruff was asked to take a less directional role in corporate governance. He stepped back and accepted the position of chairman in 1954, although he continued to serve on the board of directors. Not long after, he began to confront Paul Austin, who was determined to take the position of president and CEO of the company. Bob Woodruff and Paul Austin disagree on a number of issues, but in most cases the board of directors agrees with Woodruff's decisions. Despite his increasing age, Woodruff is still quite influential. For years, Austin has remained steadfast in diversifying its business by investing in business opportunities unrelated to the beverage industry, such as shrimp farms and private coffee brands. Woodruff vehemently opposes these ideas. In 1979, Austin offered to appoint 6 vice presidents who reported directly to him, one of whom would be his successor. And this was approved by the board of directors. To everyone's surprise, Roberto Goizueta, a former chemical engineer of Cuban nationality, became Austin's successor. Goizueta's shining period. The dissolution of Coca-Cola International, the company that gave Woodruff and his father the right to run the business, gave Goizueta the opportunity to consolidate his power. Goizueta has made some fundamental changes, including acquire a controlling interest in the New York Coca-Cola Bottling Company, keep it personally, and sell it to close owners. Order to sell all of Austin's non-beverage related investments, as these investments have taken resources away from the company's core business and are also unprofitable. Replace the Tab diet drink with Diet Coke, a dramatic change in terms where no one had ever dared to tamper with the name Coke or Coca-Cola. This was a complete and immediate success. Buy a movie studio. Columbia Pictures, in an effort to diversify the company's operations and grow profits, in its first year, the company's new branch made more than $90 million. Introduce New Coke, a modified version of Coke's formula, in response to Coke's centuries-long decline in market share. Long before they tasted the product, many Americans decided that they didn't like the product. It failed completely at the start. The company only saved itself after the introduction of Classic Coke, which became a phenomenal success beyond traditional Coke. Goizueta is known for creating more wealth for the company's shareholders than any other CEO in the company's history. The bottom line is that Coca-Cola has a special place in history as the most iconic product for America. It's just a sugary drink, with or without a few ingredients, but because of the way it's branded, the Coca-Cola image forever surpasses the brand itself.